Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're gonna make tortellini alla panna, a wonderful recipe made with just a few ingredients. Pasta alle vongole all'Esenziale, my father's special recipe, the best pasta with clams. Chicken scallopini, so easy, so good. And of course, let's not forget about dessert, my amazing apple tart. And learn how I traded my favorite spoon for this one. Come for the recipes, stay for the stories. My favorite utensil in the kitchen is a large stainless steel spoon. Why? I love the spoon because it becomes an extension of my own hand. And the way in which I touch and I turn the ingredients into the pan is as if my own fingers at the very moment are making connection with what is cooking. What I want to share with you is a sauce which is so simple, it's almost ridiculous. And from now on, even when you go to your favorite supermarket and you pick up your favorite brand of tortellini, ravioli, tortelloni, filled with whatever you want, you will find this to be your true go-to sauce. Why? The sauce is full, it's rich, but it only has two ingredients: cream and Parmesan cheese. You don't believe me? Let me show you how to make it. The sauce, really, it's all about the cream. What we're going to do right now, we're going to cook the cream and eliminate most of the water that is in the cream so that it gets this wonderful thickening to it. And then to the cream, we're going to be adding the pasta. As the cream is cooking, one of the things that I like to do, I like to stir it around. Why? I notice when there's too much heat and the cream could burn. And yes, by the way, the cream could burn. If that should happen to you, one of the things that you can do to bring the cream back into its whole former state is to add a couple of spoons of the pasta water. The pasta water is full of starch and for whatever reason that I don't understand, seems to be bringing the cream sauce back together. But it will only do it for you 3 times. After the 3rd time, there is no way you're bringing it back. And I want for the cream to be this slight, comfortable flow on the outside that will thicken up later on with a little bit of Parmesan. Now look at this. The cream already is starting to reduce inside. You see the water evaporating through the steam is becoming thicker and thicker. When it gets to this point, don't get too cocky. What I want you to do is to lower this to medium low. And now it's time for us to add a tortellini. The next thing that you want to do is gently stir them about. What we want to do at this point is to reduce the cream even more. There is some water still retained by the tortellini. Why? If you notice, this tortellini, the way they are, they're shaped almost as a hat. In all the crevices around here, some of the water in which they cook was trapped. It's now being released into the cream. What we want to do is to cook the water away, and that will be for us almost a very symbolic way of reducing the cream, making sure that the cream covers the tortellini completely, and it gives us the wonderful coating that we're looking for, which we're going to spice up with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. When you shop for Parmesan cheese, there's only one Parmesan cheese, and that is Parmigiano Reggiano. You can buy other Parmesan cheeses that have the name Parmesan. It's made in the style of Parmigiano Reggiano, but it's not Parmigiano Reggiano. It is at this point, as the cream starts to reduce, and you can see it from the bowl around, you can see how it starts to coat everything, that I like to add the cheese. I want for this cheese and the cream to melt together. Parmigiano Reggiano, grated or shredded will do, but ultimately what it will do, it will melt right into the cream. And at this point, gently reduce the heat a little bit. Look at this, you see, this is the coating that you're looking for. This is the cream becoming a sauce, already imbued with all these flavors in it. Now, as it is perfect. You don't need to add anything. But just because I'm a huge fan of pepper, I like to add pepper. So here I go, a little bit of pepper that I cracked earlier on. Oh, mamma mia. The aroma, the perfect quality of pepper is wonderful. There you are. Signori e signori, la pasta è pronta, which by the way means the pasta is ready. Let me show you how to play it. These are not tortellini. Tortellini means little tortelli. These are tortelloni. They're slightly bigger than tortellini, but I call them tortellini. Why? Because they remind me of my youth. And they should be little like this, always, every day. How can it be that a man at my age is so enamored with pasta, specifically tortelloni, tortellini, ravioli, gnocchi? It's a good thing to be Italian. Oh, yes, it is. That spoon, to me, is more than just a utensil. It is almost an embodiment of my thoughts, the ways in which I look at things, and it gives me a connection between the ingredients, the moment of cooking. And people say, but why? Why you have such beautiful non-stick pans? And I adore my non-stick pan, but that spoon and I, we're married. Pasta, le vongole all'Esenziale. Don't try that without proper training. All'Esenziale means in the essential way. It was my father's vision to try to figure a way to cook shellfish, actually for the matter all sorts of fish, with a very basic essential flavoring that runs into it. In this particular case, what makes this pasta interesting is that instead of my usual style of sauteing the garlic, the red pepper flakes, we actually imbue the olive oil with the flavor of the garlic and the spiciness of the red pepper flakes, so that once we make the sauce, all that you have is the clams, the juices, and a little bit of additional liquid. This pasta is so simple that it is astonishingly great. Enough said. How about I show you how to make it? It is in this olive oil where we will cook the clams. So the flavor that comes out, the personality of this dish, the secret of this essential taste is in the olive oil. And of course, fresh clams. When you add the clams to the hot oil, keep in mind that it would be best that you have drained the clams real well. As a matter of fact, one extra step that I do when I make it at home for myself is to kind of put them into a towel and just let them dry out. Because if you have too much water in there, cold water hits the hot olive oil, it will be almost like a splattering explosion going everywhere. Is it going to ruin the flavor? No. But it makes it a lot safer, a lot easier to handle the clams this way. Notice that I place no salt and no pepper. Those clams are full of salt from the sea. The pepper, that flavoring is given to it from what we add in the olive oil with the red pepper flakes. It is at this point that I like to add parsley, and you can use chicken stock or the water in which the pasta has cooked. I'm gonna bring this to a boil and we're gonna cook it until the clams are completely open. And why is this important? Inside the clams, trapped between the shell, there's an enormous amount of juice. This juice is at the essential part of the sauce. Now, this juice is basically on its own already full of salt, the salt of the ocean. As it meets with the olive oil and the infusion that we have with the garlic and the red pepper flakes, the sauce is opening up. As it cooks at the same time and reduces, most of the water evaporates, and what is left is the essential flavor. Now, you want to wait until all the clams have opened up. Those that have not opened up, those are the ones that you want to get rid of. You'll notice that some of them open faster than others, but wait until all of them have opened up. Give them a few moments, and if they don't open, it means that those clams actually are dead. They need to be getting rid of. If the clam does not open, it is not good to eat. As you can see, there's some late bloomers that always come in. I'm keeping an eye on these guys to see if they're resisting us, or, oh, look at this guy, he's ready to come to the party. This fella, most antisocial. So, you guys don't get to play with us. The next thing we're going to do, we are going to add our pasta. And we're gonna let the pasta finish cooking inside the sauce, the juices that's left over from the clams. I've undercooked the pasta. Just like I've done with many other pasta recipe, I cooked it beyond al dente. It still needs 2 or 3 minutes. The reason why I've done that is because I want the pasta to pick up this flavor. I want this juice that you see right in here, not just to be on top of the pasta. I want this juice to be into every bite that you take. And then at that point you have, I don't know how to tell you this, it's this element, this joy of it makes you feel great inside, where the flavor of the pasta and the clam has become one. And it's in this essential rendition of pasta alle vongole that I find this enormous happiness. First, because I'm in love with clams. Second, because by following this very simple technique, I'm able to bring out the very best of me. I believe that every dish that you make ultimately has an aspect of who you are, what you believe in, how you feel about the world, how you feel about life. And pasta with clams, I would say, is the flag of my passion, if I can say so. Plus, it reminds me of Sicily, specifically my dad. The pasta is absolutely perfect. I turn off the heat. Let's plate it. There's something to be said about Clams all'Esenziale, Vongole All'Esenziale. Not only is a trip back into my past, but it's also the understanding on how basic flavors come together through very simple techniques. And what you bring out here is the essential of everything. I love this clams and the juice that pours down. This came right from the clams. There was nothing added except just a little bit of love. This is pasta with clams in its best possible fashion and way. However, recently it's been brought to attention from my wife that if I use the spoon again, it might be cause for divorce. So, as a gift to me, she actually gave me a wonderful spoon that is made out of silicone that almost looks like my metal spoon. It works almost like it, but it doesn't ruin the pans. The making of the scallopini involves some very heavy-duty and dangerous pieces of equipment, a sharp knife and a pounder. Now, let me show you how we make chicken scallopini. The first thing that we want to do is trim the chicken breast nicely. As you can see, most of the fat I've taken off. Then, using the knife, you want to cut the chicken breast at a slant like this, because this way it will spread even wider when we make scallopini out of it. Make them as thick as you want, and depending on how big you want your final scallopini to be. And the reason why I like to give it a wider slant is because this way when we pound them, they will expand even more. A lot of people say, well, you could just use the pounder and pound right at it. I find that when the pounder meets the flesh of the chicken directly, one of the biggest problems that we have is that it tears it apart. Biggest mistake that people make more often than not is to use this part of the pounder. Always use the flat side, and with a certain gentleness, move on to it and give it the shape that you want. So what I like to do is with a flat side, a little bit like this, and you can see how it does expand. We have pounded all the scallopini to perfection. Now I want to put them into this plate, and I want to show you a very simple technique on how to flavor them and how to actually run them through the flour. The part of the flour is very important. First, I like to get them off the cutting board just like this. Before we even put the flour, what I like to do is to salt and pepper them on both sides. Now watch what I do in terms of flouring it. You put it lightly on one side, lightly on the other. There's an excess of flour. You want to shake it off. Why? If you don't shake the flour off before you fry them, this flour will go to the bottom of the pan and will burn. One more. Here we go on one side. Here we go on the other side. And then shake it off gently, just like this. And you continue until you've done them all. Well, the scallopini are perfectly floured. I washed my hands and now, I'm sorry I did that laughter. I love it. But now we're ready to fry it. Let me show you. Over medium high heat, bring the olive oil to a nice hot sizzle. And now we're going to sear our scallopini. Remember, we're gonna brown them, but we're still gonna keep them a little bit raw on the inside because we'll finish the scallopini cooking inside the sauce. One of the great things about the scallopini is that by browning them on the outside, we are searing all of the important juices on the inside. So when they will braise into the sauce will not only coat them on the outside, but exchanges wonderful elements of flavor. Think of yourself as if you're a painter, and the ingredients that you use in the making of the recipe are these beautiful colors that you can see in your eyes, you can feel in your heart, and you can imagine. Cooking is like painting. When you turn the scallopini, always make sure that you turn them away from you. Why? If I was to drop this, the oil will splash outward in that way, never toward me. Hot oil like this, if not careful with, burns. How do I know? I had my few moments where I learned my lesson. Give it no more than another minute, and this part of the browning of the scallopini is done. We got the perfect consistency that we want, and now we take the scallopini and we move them away, put them back in the plate, and in the pan where we cook the scallopini, we're going to make the sauce. Now, before we get started, one of the things that I like to do is to take some of the oil in which we cook the chicken out of the pan. I've used abundant oil because it's very important that the chicken has enough of an amount of hot oil all the way around that does the perfect browning, but this oil is way too much for the sauce. So I'll take a couple of tablespoons out. Once you've taken the oil out and you have the exact amount that you want, usually I like to have no more than 2, maybe 3 tablespoons at most of oil in the pan, especially if you're cooking for the large group. This is a single serving, so it's a lot less. I want to make sure that you reheat the oil once again. Just the time that it takes you to move the oil away from the pan into a container lowers the temperature of the oil. And what I want the oil to do at this point is to really brown all the ingredients, because the bit of browning that we're going to get is going to add a lot of flavor. Our first addition is the garlic. I cut the garlic nice and thick because I want this garlic to be at the base of the sauce, and it will cook over a long period of time and soften up. Together with the garlic, we add some chopped white onion. Even red onions would do well for you. And here is the best surprise of them all. These are sun-dried tomatoes that are packed in olive oil. I drained the olive oil, and now we're adding the sun-dried tomatoes to the sauce, and this will make a fantastic base for us. Why do I like sun-dried tomatoes? What makes them unique? In the process of drying the tomatoes, all the flavor of the tomatoes themselves, it's concentrated by 1,000 times, but yet, over the gentle way in which the sun treats them, over a period of time, there's a wonderful sweetness to the tomato which is natural to them. And in this form, they have a pop of flavor, a presence of their own, and they have the ability as a glue to build a base that accepts all these other flavors and brings them to the next level. While the tomatoes are cooking so nicely, the next thing that I like to do is to add the parsley. If you don't like parsley, one of the things that you can substitute it with would be basil. That's an excellent addition, the aroma that we have in here. You notice that at this point, I'm not putting any salt or any pepper. There's quite a bit of salt within the context of the sun-dried tomatoes. And what I like to do instead is wait until the sauce comes to the very end and then taste for the amount of salt and pepper. And if I feel at that point to add some more, I do. Once you add too much salt, you can't go back. It is at this point that I like to add a little bit of white wine. What we want to do here is twofold. We want to dislodge the brown bits at the bottom. And you can see it right now how the wine, as it's reducing, is already changing color. Unbeknownst to you, many of the juices of the chicken, which we had previously cooked into this pan, have reduced to such an intensity that they're stuck to the bottom of the pan. Now, this is a wonderful non-stick pan, but you still have a wonderful resolution of these juices at the bottom. The wine frees them and renders them liquid again and makes them part of the sauce. And this is an additional flavor which is essential to the success of this dish. Once the wine reduces almost to a glaze, is the moment for us to add the other ingredients. What I like to add at this point is chicken stock. And after you add the chicken stock, a few spoonfuls of peas. You can use fresh peas or frozen peas. They will cook in the sauce and give us exactly a wonderful combination of extra flavors. They have the sweetness of the young peas mixed together with the wine, with the stock. All these elements are coming together and releasing within the context of the sauce their own personality. If you do your job right, all these personalities will be like notes within the context of a song or a melody, and together you will have music. If you push too hard one side, or if you push too hard the other side, and all these elements don't come together, then you have a sauce that looks beautiful, doesn't taste as good as it looks. And that is always what you want to avoid. Once you cook the sauce for about 5 to 6 minutes of a medium-high heat, and it's reduced to the right consistency, at this point you want to lower it down to medium-low, and then you want to add the chicken. Let the chicken braise freely into the sauce. How much time? It depends from the scallopini that you had. These, I still kept them fairly thick. I estimate this particular one, a good 6 minutes, maybe 8 minutes will be perfect. But remember, we have medium-low heat, and as this cooks, it releases its own juices into the sauce, giving it the personality that we're looking for. And the sauce, slowly but surely, is also reducing, increasing this wonderful aspect, this flavor that we're looking for. It's going to be spectacular. The last addition that we're going to make to the dish at this point is the addition of the butter. What I prefer to use when it comes to butter is non-salted butter, or unsalted. I call it non-salted. Drives my wife crazy every time I do this. It's, for God's sake, Nick, you've been in America all this time, and speak English. I go, I got an accent, and it's cute. Sometimes it works, most time it doesn't. Now here we go. Ooh, mamma mia, perfetto. We turn off the heat, and now we're ready to plate. Plating to me is the aspect that I love the most. I love the most because it's the moment in which this vision that I had inside my own head finally comes together into a reality. What I love the most is the sauce. I like to put the sauce all the way around. Now, there's always a fight at my house between me and my wife. My wife always tells me at this point I should stop. But I say, how can I stop? I want to put a little bit more garlic right in here, and then a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes right in there so you can see it. And then at this point she smacks me on the back of the head and says, enough is enough! But I cannot stop. This is exactly what I want. Scallopini di pollo, sun-dried tomatoes, peas, and garlic alla Stellino. Enjoy. And I say, why, Nancy, why stunting my creativity like this? And she says to me, the pans, they always come first. This way, they will be with us forever. And I have to listen. Apples, puff pastry, sugar, butter. This is a marriage made in heaven. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you in a very simple way how to put all these ingredients together and make a dessert that is elegant, tasty, and from now on, quite possibly, will become your signature dessert. Let me show you. When it comes to my apple tart, the most important thing is the filling. We start here with butter first, let it melt a little bit. Once the butter starts to melt, I like to have it almost in a semi-liquid form. The next thing that we're going to do is to add the sugar. And the amount of sugar that we add is almost equal parts as to what we do with the butter. Now, cooking over medium-high heat, always stirring attentively, you want to turn this into a caramel. How do you do that? Well, there's an accelerator, and that is a little bit of lemon juice. Just add a few drops. There you are. And then as you stir, keep an eye on it because it will go from just melted butter and melted sugar to caramel quite quickly. It will take a few minutes, but stay with it and keep stirring. Don't keep your eyes away from it because this is something that can turn on you quite quickly. The butter and sugar now have gone through the various phases. As you can see, it's now starting to bubbling aggressively. Pretty soon this is going to darken up and this is the beginning of the caramel. When that happens, be alert. This is not something you want to waste time with. There you are. We are at the caramel stage. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to add the apples. What we've done with these apples, we peel the apples, then we core the apples, and then we cut them in small pieces, small dices and small slices, whichever way you like them best to look on top of the apple tart once it's done. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm cooking the apples in the caramel. Why? First reason, I want them to get nice and dark and absorb the caramel. But also, in this continuous stirring, what I'm trying to do is to make sure that most of the water is still retained by the apples somewhat dissipates. So that what we are left with is a very thick caramel, the apple juice that will harden up with some of the sugar on the inside, which will make for us the perfect and most enchanting filling. I think this is the finished look that I love. I lost most of the water. This is perfect. Let me turn off the heat. All right, what we're going to do next, we're gonna let this cool off. We're gonna make sure that it cools off down to room temperature because we're gonna use this as the topping for our apple tart. I'm gonna put it right here in the middle. You can put in whatever amount you want, but whatever amount you want, let your fingers guide you through it. You want to mount it so that at least a 1/4 inch all the way around is completely free. Why? Well, let me show you. This is a piece that we already placed in the oven and we cooked at about 400 degrees for 15 minutes. Notice how much higher this is. And this is what puff pastry does. Puff pastry has many layers of butter and flour, and over the periods of cooking, it creates a multi-layer effect. This is something that's quite easy, but not that many people do. What we're taking in this pan, I have melted some apple jelly. And you can do it with also any other kind of jelly that you want. Even the red currant, believe it or not, is a fantastic jelly to go with. And then using a nice nylon brush, and I use this because it gives me much more control. I like to dab the edges just like this to bring out this moistness. Now, how important is this? The fact that this is an apple jelly and the content on the inside is made of apples as well gives me a continuity of flavors, and this is what I love. And usually what I do is I do this right before I bring them out and I serve it to my diners. And look how pretty it is. All around, it's splendid. I have another trick up my sleeve. Once I have cooked the apples to the perfect degree, the apples start to leak out some of the caramel. The leftover caramel is what I will use for the presentation of the dessert. The last thing is the powdered sugar on top, typical of all dessert. Ladies and gentlemen, This is the dessert that brings friends and family together. It is light, it tastes fantastic, it's easy to make. This is my apple tart. Well, for those of you out there who are not married, trust me, one day you'll talk like me. Whatever she says, you go along with. Happy wife, hey, happy life. And for a guy who's been married for over 35 years, I know what I'm talking about. Hey, fellas, before we go active, I just came up with an idea for the title of the show. Nick Stellino, a storyteller in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Let's save it for conversation later. I wonder if this might work.
Yeah, we have it on. We just got the title sequence right there.
There you are. The ideas, they come at me. I cannot stop them. They fly like this. Sometimes they go knock, knock. I say, no! And then I say, you can come out now. Brilliant. I love me. Go on.